Google Drive sharing mechanism is great for collaboration. You can invite others to work on the same document, modifying, adding comments, or just reading, and they'll always have access to the latest version of the document you've shared. But if you have material that you want others to have a copy of, perhaps they can use it independently, you want to distribute copies of your files rather than share them. I use GitHub and downloadable links to provide the working material needed for my books and video courses, but the problem is that I'm generally dealing with Google Apps files such as scripts and spreadsheets, so the user has to figure out from that how to link to the shared file to get its contents, and then to make a copy of the file to work on. So what I really wanted to do was to provide a link that would make copies of the working material on the user's own drive, so they wouldn't immediately hit a learning curve barrier if they weren't familiar with drive links and sharing and copying. For my latest video course, I've done that. Clicking on a link is all that's required to get copies of all the course material. In this video I'll show you how that works and how you can use the web app to distribute copies of your own stuff. I'll also share the source code if you want to publish your own version of the web app. First, a quick recap on sharing versus distribution. Using the standard Google Drive approach, which is geared towards collaboration, you're always working on the same file that you shared. It starts with inviting the user to access a document. They don't have to make copies, and everyone's comments or changes are reflected between the collaborators. However, should you want to distribute, in other words, the audience would have their own independent copy of the files, you need to start by inviting others to share and provide view access. The user would then need to make a copy on their own drive. This doesn't sound like a big deal, but for people using Drive for the first time, it can be a barrier to entry, especially if the sharing by email step doesn't happen, which is the case if someone simply has the ID of a file that they've obtained from a book or in traditional distribution material. So here's an example of it working. Let's say I want to share this material with anybody who wants a copy of it. I don't want them to be sharing it with me, as I might update it or move it or decide to stop using Drive and do something else with my life. And I want them to have a copy of the files at the time I distribute the link. Then I'd use this link, which is the link of the published web app, and then I would get the folder ID that I want to share, which is this, and I'd say the source ID is that folder, and then I'd give some target parameter saying the name of the folder that I'd like the files to be copied to on the user's drive. So this is a fairly long URL. That's the nature of AppScript published applications. However, I'll show you later a way to make that more digestible too. So now when I execute that, then we get this. So we've now got a web page showing the files that are going to be copied. So the user has now clicked on this link and he's got this picture in front of him. And when he says copy, then the files get copied to his drive and he gets the little message. So let's look at what got copied. So this is what he's going to find. So it's managed to keep all the files intact, and it's copied not only Google documents, it's also copied things like Excel, PowerPoints, and images and PDFs and so on as well. So a really straightforward way to distribute files to people, just send them a link. So here's the steps. First, go to the folder that you want to share. Make sure that you set the sharing settings to what's appropriate for who you want to share it with. If it's public, then make it public. If it's specific people, change it to the list of specific people who should have access to it. I'm going to make this one public. Get the folder ID, which is this key here. Decide what you want the folder called in the user's drive. Construct all that into a link. Now you'll probably want to go off to goo.gl and make a short version of that. So over there you just paste in the link and then shorten it, and that'll create a new one, which is here. Just copy that. So now you're going to send this very short link to someone, and they're going to use that, and they're going to get this dialog, and they can copy the files. So let's say that you want to publish your own version of this script rather than using mine. Well, first thing to do is to get a copy of the code and the instructions, which of course you're going to use the web app itself to get them with. So that's the short code for that. And here's the assets that will be copied to your drive. So you're going to get PowerPoint file, which is what we looked at the beginning of this video. We've got a document describing how it works, and you've got a script file, and this is the script file that you're going to publish. So we'll copy that, and in your My Drive in this folder you'll find these files, and here they are. So this is your copy of the script now. It's nothing to do with mine. It's not being shared, it's a copy. So now you can publish this. So you're going to deploy as a web app. You're going to make the first version of it. Now this is important. You're going to execute the app as the user accessing the web app, because you need to have access to his drive. And who has access to the app? Anyone. Or if you're doing it within your own domain, then anyone within your domain, but let's make it public. And then we'll deploy it. And you remember this URL here. And now you can use your version of the web app, which is the link that we've just copied, and you add the parameters that we did earlier, just like before, of whatever the folder you want to share and whatever you want it called in the other guy's drive. And of course you'd probably go off to go.gl and make a short version of that and distribute away. So that's all there is to it. So for more info, you can see the details on the screen here, or alternatively you can just get your own copy like we just did, and you can take a look at it in more detail and use the links and so on. So that's all, folks.